I still remember the first time I doubted her. It wasn't anything major, just a small inconsistency. A late-night meeting that hadn't been on her calendar. Claire had always been good at keeping her schedule organized. She had to be. As a high-profile marketing executive, her time was meticulously planned. But that night, when she came home well past midnight, her explanation felt off. It ran longer than expected, she had said, avoiding my gaze as she kicked off her heels. At the time, I brushed it aside. We'd been married for 8 years, and though work had kept us busy, I believed in our bond. I was an architect, constantly juggling deadlines and projects, so I understood the demands of a career. Claire had supported me through my late nights. Why shouldn't I do the same for her? But then, it happened again. Another unexplained meeting. Another strange excuse. I started paying attention. Our marriage. On the surface, Claire and I were the perfect couple. We had a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood, successful careers, and a tight-knit group of friends. People admired us. "You two are relationship goals," our friends would say. I believed it, too. Sure, things had changed over the years. The passion we once had wasn't as fiery, but I thought that was normal. We still shared inside jokes, still enjoyed Sunday brunches together, still made plans for the future. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was. The small signs I ignored. Claire's behavior began to shift in ways I couldn't ignore. She started taking her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. Before, she'd leave it on the kitchen counter without a second thought. Her social media changed, too. She used to post pictures of us together, smiling at dinner, traveling, celebrating anniversaries. But suddenly, it was just her. At work events, on solo outings. My presence in her online life began to fade. "Why don't you post us anymore?" I asked one evening as we sat on the couch. She smiled, a little too forced. "I don't need to prove anything to anyone, babe." That answer should have raised a red flag, but I convinced myself it was nothing. The first real clue. The moment I truly began to suspect something was wrong came on a Saturday morning. Claire had left early for a supposed brunch with coworkers, but when I walked past her office, her laptop was still open. The screen displayed an email inbox, one I didn't recognize. Curiosity got the better of me. I sat down, hesitating for only a second before clicking. It was locked with a password. That in itself wasn't alarming. People had private emails. But Claire had always been an open book with me. Why would she need a hidden account? When she returned that afternoon, I casually asked, "How was brunch?" "Oh, it was great. We went to the Oak House, new place downtown. Amazing mimosas." I nodded, pretending to believe her. But later that evening, when I checked the restaurant's website, I saw something interesting. They didn't serve brunch on Saturdays. That was the first time I felt the chill of doubt seep into my bones. A change in our intimacy. I tried to push away my concerns, but things between us continued to shift. Claire had always been affectionate. She'd greet me with a kiss, hold my hand absent-mindedly, cuddle up next to me while watching TV. Now, she seemed distant. She barely touched me, and when I kissed her, it felt rehearsed, like she was doing it out of obligation, not desire. One night, I reached for her in bed, running my hand along her hip. She flinched. "I'm just tired, babe. Work has been exhausting," she murmured, rolling away from me. I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me otherwise. The tipping point. A few weeks later, something happened that shattered my remaining doubts. Claire had a business trip scheduled, a 3-day conference in Chicago. She'd packed her bags the night before, kissed me goodbye that morning, and left in an Uber for the airport. That evening, I went out with my best friend, Jake. Over drinks, I mentioned Claire's trip. "Chicago?" Jake frowned. I thought she said she was going to Seattle. My blood ran cold. "What?" "Yeah," he said. "She told Emily last week that she had a conference in Seattle." I forced a chuckle, acting like it was a simple mix-up, but inside, my mind was racing. When I got home, I did something I had never done before. I opened her laptop. The password. That damn password. I didn't know it, but at that moment, I knew I had to find out. I needed to see what she was hiding. And so, I made up my mind. I was going to get answers. The investigation begins. I couldn't sleep that night. Claire's conflicting travel details had ignited something in me, a restlessness I couldn't ignore. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I replayed every inconsistency, every moment that had felt wrong but that I had brushed aside. Was I overreacting? Was I just being paranoid? No, something was off, and I needed to know the truth. I got out of bed and went straight to Claire's office. Her laptop sat there, closed but mocking me, daring me to open it again. The password stood as a barrier between me and the answers I was desperate to find. I tried the obvious ones first. Her birthday, our anniversary, the name of our dog, Max. Nothing. Then, I thought back to the time she had typed it in front of me. She always angled the screen away, but I had caught glimpses. Her fingers moved in a pattern, left side, middle, then a longer press. I exhaled, typing out, Chicago 2023. Access denied. I clenched my fists, frustration bubbling in my chest. But I wasn't giving up. I thought harder. If Claire had another life, something secret, her password might reflect that. I tried her maiden name. Incorrect password. Then, almost instinctively, I typed something else, the name of her ex-boyfriend. The screen unlocked. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands trembled as I navigated her emails. The hidden inbox. There it was, an email account I had never seen before, registered under the name C.L. Monroe instead of Claire Lancaster, her married name. In the messages, they confirmed everything. There were hundreds of emails between her and someone named Daniel Carter. I clicked on the most recent one, dated that very morning, the day she had left for Chicago, from Claire Monroe to Daniel Carter. Subject, I can't wait. I'm in the car now, heading to you. God, I hate sneaking around like this, but it's the only way. I miss you. I'll call once I check into the hotel. Love you. I stared at the words, my breath shallow. Love you. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, was telling another man she loved him. A web of lies. I clicked through the emails, each one worse than the last. I wish I had met you first. I hate going home to him. I feel trapped. But soon, we won't have to hide anymore. Soon. That word sent a chill down my spine. What did she mean? Then, I saw it. A forwarded email from a divorce attorney. From Jeffrey and Myers Law Firm. To Claire Monroe. Subject, preliminary divorce discussion. Claire, per our conversation, I've attached the draft proposal regarding asset division. Please review before our next meeting. I pushed away from the desk, my pulse hammering. She was planning to leave me. She was building a life with him behind my back, and I had been blind, tracking her location. Rage and heartbreak battled within me, but I forced myself to think clearly. I needed proof. I grabbed my phone and pulled up our shared Find My iPhone app. There she was. Not in Chicago. She was in a hotel in our own city, just 30 minutes away. The confrontation plan. I sat there, staring at the blinking blue on the map. My hands clenched into fists. Every fiber of my being told me to drive there right now, bust down the door, and confront her. But I stopped myself. No, that's what she'd expect. Claire was calculating, always thinking 2 steps ahead. If I went there in a blind rage, she'd find a way to turn it around. I needed irrefutable evidence, something she couldn't explain away. I had an idea, enlisting help. I called Jake. It was nearly midnight, but he picked up on the second ring. Hey, man, everything okay? No, I said, my voice cold. I need your help. Are you up for a little late-night stakeout? He didn't hesitate. I'll be there in 15. 15 minutes later, Jake pulled into my driveway. I climbed into his car, still gripping my phone, the hotel's location pinned on the screen. Are you sure about this? Jake asked as we drove. She's been lying to me for God knows how long, I muttered. I need to see it with my own eyes. Jake nodded and pressed the gas pedal harder, catching her in the act. The hotel was a sleek, modern building in the city's business district. We parked across the street, hidden in the shadows. I watched the entrance, my stomach twisting. The seconds felt like hours. Then, there she was, Claire, laughing, holding onto the arm of a man I had never seen before. Daniel Carter. She kissed him, right there, under the dim glow of the streetlights. It took everything in me not to storm across the street. Instead, I lifted my phone and snapped photo after photo. Proof. Undeniable proof. Jake exhaled sharply. Jesus, man. I felt nothing but cold, simmering rage. Take me home, I said. I have work to do. I spent the next few hours gathering everything. The emails, the photos, her fake email account, the lawyer's draft. Then, I did something I knew would push her into a panic. I sent her an email from her own secret account. From Claire Monroe to Daniel Carter. Subject, urgent. Daniel, we have a problem. He knows. Then, I waited. At 6 a.m., Claire walked into the house, looking exhausted and nervous. She had dark circles under her eyes, her hair slightly disheveled. She saw me sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open, the evidence in front of me. Her face went pale. James? I turned the laptop screen toward her, showing the pictures of her kissing Daniel. Good morning, Claire, I said coldly. Have a nice trip? Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time in our marriage, she had nothing to say. The silence before the storm. Claire stood frozen in the doorway, her face pale, her breathing shallow. Her eyes darted between me and the laptop screen, where the evidence of her betrayal was laid out for her to see. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, she did something that made my blood boil. She laughed. A short, breathy, nervous laugh, like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. James, what is this? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. You tell me, Claire. I'm curious. What part of this do you not recognize? The emails? The hotel? The man you've been screwing behind my back? She swallowed hard. I don't know what you think you've found, but cut the bullshit, Claire. I slammed my hand on the table, making her flinch. I know everything. The emails, the fake account, the lawyer. I know about Daniel. I know you were never in Chicago. I know you've been planning to leave me. Her lips parted as if she was about to deny it, but then her entire body sagged. Like a marionette with its strings cut. She whispered, How did you find out? A bitter laugh escaped me. Does it matter? She exhaled shakily, running a hand through her hair. James, I was going to tell you. I didn't know how. I stared at her in disbelief. You didn't know how? You were going to tell me? Claire, you weren't going to tell me a damn thing. You were going to blindside me with divorce papers after draining me for everything I had. Her lips pressed together, guilt flickering across her face. But then, something changed. Her expression hardened. Okay, she said, her voice sharp now. Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Daniel. Yes, I've been planning to leave. But don't act like this is all on me, James. You've been so caught up in your work, your projects, your deadlines. You stopped seeing me a long time ago. I felt my jaw clench. That's your excuse? She crossed her arms. It's not an excuse, it's the truth. You act like you're this perfect husband, but you've been emotionally checked out for years. I shook my head. Oh, that's rich, Claire. You didn't try to fix things. You didn't tell me you were unhappy. You just started screwing another man and planned to throw me away like trash. Her gaze flickered with something. Shame? Anger? Maybe both. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, she muttered. No. I scoffed. How was it supposed to happen? Were you planning to sit me down like an adult? Or were you just going to let your lawyer do the dirty work? She said nothing, and that silence was answer enough, breaking her world apart. I stood up, my heart pounding with a cold, controlled fury. You know, Claire, I thought about confronting you at that hotel, I said, watching her flinch. But then I realized something. You don't deserve a dramatic showdown. You don't deserve some screaming match in public. What you deserve is to lose. Her brows furrowed. What are you talking about? I gave her a slow, deliberate smile. You thought you were going to take everything from me. But, sweetheart, you didn't realize. I've been playing the game too. She blinked. What? I pulled a thick folder from under the table and slid it toward her. Go ahead. Open it. Hesitantly, she did. As her eyes scanned the pages, Her face turned ghostly pale. This is everything, Claire. Bank statements. The money you secretly transferred to a private account under your maiden name. The contract you signed with your lawyer. The emails between you and Daniel discussing how you were going to take the house, half my income, and leave me with nothing. She flipped frantically through the pages, her breathing uneven. How did you get this? She whispered. I smirked. You weren't as careful as you thought. And Daniel? He's even sloppier. Did you know he's in debt? Deep debt? Did you know he's been using you? Her head snapped up. That's a lie. Is it? I pulled out another document, Daniel's financial records. Credit card debt, defaulted loans, gambling transactions. Claire's fingers trembled as she scanned the pages. No, he wouldn't. Oh, he would, I said, leaning closer. And he did. Do you think he loves you, Claire? Or do you think he loves what you can give him? She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. I wasn't done. Oh, and one more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. You see, I didn't just find your emails. I sent them. Her breath hitched. Sent them? Sent them to who? I grinned. Your boss. Your family. Our friends. Everyone who ever thought we were relationship goals. They all know now, Claire. A strangled gasp escaped her. You. Check your phone, I interrupted. With shaking hands, she pulled out her phone and unlocked it. Immediately, her notifications flooded in, texts, missed calls, emails. Her mother, her sister, her boss. Her entire world was crumbling in real time. She dropped the phone like it had burned her. James, please. Her voice was barely a whisper now. We can fix this. I let out a cold chuckle. There's nothing left to fix, Claire. Tears streamed down her face now. I made a mistake, she choked out. I was confused. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. I stared at her, feeling nothing. You didn't just hurt me, Claire. You destroyed everything we built. And now? You get to watch it all burn. I stood up, grabbing my car keys. Where are you going? She sobbed. Anywhere that isn't here, I said, walking to the door. Oh, and Claire? She looked up, hope flashing in her eyes for just a second. I crushed it. You should call your lawyer. You're going to need one. Then, I walked out, leaving her alone in the ruins of her lies, watching it all fall apart. I drove through the city streets, the weight of the night pressing down on me. The adrenaline was still running through my veins, but beneath it, there was a deep, aching numbness. I had one. I had taken everything from Claire before she could take it from me. So why did it still feel like I had lost something? I pulled into a hotel parking lot, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, screen lighting up with yet another call. Claire. I ignored it. The messages had been relentless since I walked out. First, there had been denial. Claire swearing that everything was a mistake, that she never meant for this to happen. Then came the anger, calling me a bastard, accusing me of ruining her life. And now? Now, she was begging. James, please. We need to talk. I can explain everything. Just please, don't do this. I shut off my phone and leaned back in my seat, exhaling sharply. She still didn't get it. There was nothing left to talk about. Claire faces reality. Meanwhile, back at the house, Claire sat curled up on the couch, phone clutched in her hands. Her inbox was flooded. Her mother had called 6 times. Her sister had left a furious voicemail. Her boss had sent a short, cold email. Claire, we need to discuss your future with the company. Expect a formal meeting this week. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the messages. Friends she had once trusted had cut her off. Even Daniel had gone silent. She had tried calling him, desperate for reassurance. But the moment he answered, she had known. Claire, I can't do this. I have too much going on. Daniel, please. You said you loved me. A long pause. Then, a sigh. I can't deal with this mess. I need space. Click. The call had ended. Just like that, he was gone. And Claire was alone. The legal battle begins. The next morning, Claire showed up at the law office she had hired weeks ago, expecting to be in control of the divorce. But when she sat across from her attorney, he had a different expression than before. Claire, he said, flipping through a file. "We need to talk about your situation. Your husband. He's already filed." Her stomach dropped. "What? But I was supposed to." James acted first. "And from what I see here, he came prepared." The lawyer's voice was firm, professional, but there was something else in his eyes. Pity. "Your husband provided evidence of financial misconduct, transfers you made to an undisclosed account. That's going to look bad in court." Claire's breath hitched. I was just—" "It also appears that he has documented proof of the affair, which will weaken your position. And given that your company has now become involved, this could be damaging to your professional reputation." Claire sank back into her chair, her vision swimming. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had expected James to be devastated, to be too broken to fight back. Not this. Not a cold, calculated destruction. "What are my options?" she asked weakly. The lawyer sighed. "To be honest, you need to settle. Quickly. If this goes to court, you'll lose everything." Her own lawyer was telling her she had no chance. James moves forward. Days passed, then weeks. The legal proceedings went almost exactly as I had planned. Claire tried to fight, but she didn't have the leverage anymore. The financial records, the affair, the fact that she had been preparing to blindside me, it all painted a clear picture in court. I got the house. I got the assets. And most importantly, she got nothing. No spousal support. No sympathy from the judge. Claire had gambled everything and lost. As I walked out of the courthouse, I took in a deep breath of fresh air. It was finally over. But even as I felt the weight lift from my shoulders, a part of me still carried the scars. Claire wasn't just a stranger I had destroyed. She was someone I had once loved. And now, she was just another ghost from my past. Starting over. The day the divorce was finalized, I walked out of the courthouse feeling like I could breathe for the first time in months. The past year had been a war, one that I had barely survived. But I had won. Claire had tried to take everything from me. Instead, she had been the one left with nothing. No house, no financial support, no career. And me? I was free. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, I looked at my lawyer, Richard, who had fought like hell to make sure Claire didn't get a dime from me. "Well," he said, slipping his sunglasses on, "I've got to admit, James, you handled this better than most. No outbursts, no reckless moves. Just strategy." I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. Didn't have a choice. If I had let my emotions take over, she would have destroyed me. Richard nodded. "You did the right thing. Now it's time to move forward." Move forward. Easier said than done. Claire's new reality. Meanwhile, Claire sat in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, staring at the blank walls. She had lost everything. After the affair became public, her boss had quietly let her go, saying it was best for company reputation. Her family? They were ashamed of her. Her friends? Gone. And Daniel? He had vanished the moment things got messy. She had called him over and over, but it always went to voicemail. Once, she had gone to his apartment, pounding on the door until her hands were sore. When he finally opened it, his face was cold. "Claire, stop. It's over." "Over," she choked out. "I gave up everything for you." Daniel scoffed. "No, Claire. You gave up everything for yourself. Don't pin this on me." Then, the door shut in her face. That was the moment she realized. She had nothing left. The house was gone. Her career was over. And worst of all, she had no one to blame but herself. A new beginning for me. 3 months after the divorce, I packed my bags and boarded a plane to Europe. I had spent too much time in the same city, surrounded by memories of my past life. It was time for something new. The flight landed in Italy, a place I had always wanted to visit but never had the time. Now, time was all I had. I rented a small villa near the coast, spending my mornings drinking coffee on the terrace and my evenings walking through the cobblestone streets. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. No more lies. No more betrayal. Just me, rebuilding from the ashes. One evening, as I sat at a cafe, sipping wine and watching the sunset, a woman approached my table. "Mind if I sit?" she asked, her accent soft, melodic. I looked up, meeting her eyes. For the first time in a long time, I smiled. Maybe this was just the beginning. Claire's final regret. Back in the city, Claire sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through social media. She shouldn't have done it. She knew it would only hurt. But she typed James's name anyway. And there he was. A photo of him, sitting in a beautiful cafe in Italy, laughing with a woman. His smile was real. His eyes, filled with something they had lost long ago. Happiness. Claire felt a lump rise in her throat. She had thought she could cheat, manipulate, and come out on top. She had thought James would always be there, that he would always love her. But now? Now he had moved on, and she was the one left alone. For the first time since this all began, Claire whispered 3 words to herself. I lost him. And this time, she knew there was no getting him back.